This week I'm going to review the book Click, How to Make What People Want. And the author is Jake Knapp and John Zeratsky. And I have to tell you, I love this book. I loved it from the get-go. I loved in the introduction when the author said, look, we're going to give you a practical guide, something that you can use and apply quickly, and we're not going to bog it down with a bunch of waste. And in fact, the Audible book that I read was only 3 hours. 3 hours, and it was delightful to listen to. It had wonderful stories. It had a lot of make sense, easy to apply strategies. And they married that in the Audible book with a 54-page PDF companion with all sorts of charts and graphs and how-to, and really simplified it. And all the stories. I love this. I love this book. So you guys may be familiar with the authors. The authors have written, they've written two bestsellers, Sprint and Make Time. Now, Jake Knapp, who helped create the design sprint methodology at Google, and him and John have now partnered to create a joint ventures company that invests in upcoming tech companies. And they've now helped several hundred startup companies launch. Companies like Slack and Blue Bottle Coffee, Flatiron Health. And they've advised companies like Airbnb, Uber, and Lego. They're pretty smart dudes. And this book was enjoyable. And they read the book themselves, and they did a pretty dang good job. Now, the book only came out Monday. I was on a waiting list to get the book, to get the first release. I had listened to a podcast with John Knapp. I'm like, I gotta get this book. I gotta read it. I had read Sprint. I liked Sprint. I like this book a little bit better. It was just faster moving, easier to understand. And so here's what the whole book's about. It teaches a repeatable system called the Foundation Sprint, where you go through a process. All these processes are super quick. Identify the right customer, solve a real problem, radically differentiate from the competition, and then rapidly test and refine your ideas. So the whole thought about Click, the book, is about moving faster and smarter, not taking 2 years to see whether a vague idea is going to work or not. So I really liked it, and kind of in the preface, their theory is most teams don't fail because they lack ideas. Most fail because they don't build what people want. And that's so critical. And that's what they're saying. Look, figure out what people want, figure out what they'll adopt, what they'll use, and then build that. And so I really like that. There are four, kind of big boulders that I want to share in this book. So I'm going to just quickly, I mean lightning fast, kind of go through the book, and then I'm going to go through these big concepts, which I thought are great. And so I'll do it by just quickly just telling you what the chapters were. There's only 10 chapters. And you know what? Each chapter had a one-word title. Everything was simplicity. I loved it, right? Chapter 1, titled Reset. The key lesson is drop everything and sprint on the most important challenges. And that's kind of the key. When they say drop everything, you need to get the group that's going to do the sprint into one place together for 5 days. Turn off everything, no appointments, no disruptions. Chapter 2 is a customer. Key lesson, start by identifying your customer and a real problem you can solve. Makes sense. Now they have all sorts of tactics in here and how to do it. Like in this chapter, how to do note and vote method. And it's kind of interesting. They have this whole concept of together but separate, moves faster. Like don't brainstorm with a bunch of people. Everybody gets to just give a speech and everybody has to listen to each other. Instead, do quick secret ballots on sticky pads and go fast. And they talk about they talked about that a lot. I liked it. Chapter 3 is advantage. Let's take advantage of your team's unique capabilities, motivations, and insights. Build from your strengths. They use an example like Parada, which I'm not, Parada, sorry, in that chapter. Chapter 4 is competition. Your competition isn't just obvious competitors. It's usually the status quo and other alternatives. So it really goes deep on how do you figure out who your competitor is. It depends on what the medium is. But they use a bunch of examples. They use different, when they were talking about Slack, they were saying the competitors were, say, Gmail or Outlook, but it's really not. It's just how people communicate. There's an alternative there. Chapter 5, differentiation. Keep radical differentiation, not slight improvements. We've heard about this before. This is where they go deep in using 2x2 charts. That's where you have 4 boxes. You want to be in the top right and not the bottom left. They describe it. In the PDF, they give dozens and dozens of examples, but it's how to be easier to use, more relevant and differentiation versus harder to use, less relevant and more expensive. Chapter 6 is principles. Use a mini manifesto to clarify and simplify your guiding principles. This is where they just talk about simplicity. Look, you have to use simple language, explain your offering in simple terms that people can understand. Chapter 7 is options. What this says is, look, when you're starting to whiteboard an opportunity, make tons of different options and then have a tournament to determine which one wins, right? So it's not like, hey, we have one way of doing this. Here's 20 ways to do it. And what they use a really interesting example in the book. It's not always the one you think that's going to win that wins once you put it through this process. Chapter 8 is lenses. That's using different perspectives. Lenses to choose the best choice. I'm going to talk about this in one of the things. That has to do with the rivaling perspectives. I'm going to wrap up with one of those things. Number 9 is hypothesis. Craft a simple, testable founding hypothesis. And this is the founding hypothesis. It's one of the 3 concepts I'm going to wrap up with. Chapter 10 is experiment, and that's use tiny loops, which are fast experiments to test your hypothesis. That is, get your hypothesis in front of a really small sample set of your customers and see what they say, and then get their feedback, reiterate, feedback, reiterate, super fast. How do you do it in 5-day increments? So, the difference between this book and Sprint, this book is the foundation sprint, which is the other book had to do with just how do you do design sprints. And they're 2 different things. Design sprints you might do if you have a new product, if you want an enhancement, versus starting from scratch. When you start from scratch, you start with the foundation sprint. So let me just talk about some of the big boulders because I like it. Here's the first concept, team of rivals. So when you get in this foundation sprint, this suggests you need to have 5 people in the sprint. 1 is the decider. That is the CEO, whoever's in charge of the product, whoever is the main person. They have to participate. They don't get a veto at the end. They get to be there every day for 5 days and participate, and then they can become lobbyists for it, or they can nuke it. Now, here's the thing. All ideas, it's so funny. So the sprint team comes up with ideas, like I said, they come up like 10, 20, and in the end, the decider gets a pick. And by the way, the team votes, and they can all vote on option A, but the decider can go, nope, I'm going option B. They have full authority, right? And then the rest of the sprint team is somebody that represents the financial, practicality or lens of that product. Someone who can, put to the opportunity or the growth lens. The next one is from the customer's perspective. Will the customer like this? How come? How do we protect the customer, serve the customer? And the final one is the pragmatic. Can we do this? So that's your team of rivals. Money, growth, customer, pragmatic, all funneling into the decider who gets to decide everything. I really like that. I thought that was fantastic. And by the way, I'll just share with you really quickly. Let's go picture in picture. Here's a picture of the cover of the book. And this is actually from the PDF. This is page 18 from the PDF. And it talks about the team of rivals. Now, I'm not getting the deep details. I'm going super fast. I do want to go to the next one. I'll keep this up because let's go to the founding hypothesis framework. This is so good. I really like this. And here's what it says. I know you may not be able to read this. The founding hypothesis is if we help blank, let's say the customer, solve blank, state the problem, with blank, what the solution is or the approach, they will choose it over blank competitors because our solution is blank, what your differentiation is. So they use a few of them here, Millie Mouse. So for Millie Mouse, Millie Mouse is a study platform. If we help high schoolers solve boredom with a maze game, they will choose it over corn dogs and exercise because the solution is fast and humiliating. So that was a game. That was a game that John Knapp actually made in high school. But let's look at some more concrete ones. Google Meet. Google Meetup was like Skype. They're trying to build something to compete with Skype. Millions of people use Google Meet. I don't. Founding hypothesis. If we help teammates in different locations solve remote meetings with just a link video conferencing, they will choose it over Skype or Tandberg because our solution is fast and easy to connect, right? Good, that's great. And so they have a whole bunch of examples in the book. Genius Loco, here's another one. Genius Loco gives you really, it's mostly in Sweden for historical sites. If you're a tourist and you want to go see cool things like what's that castle or whatever, you can subscribe to Genius Loco or get their software. And they create it. So if we help tourists solve discovering local stories with physical signs and a website, they'll choose it over Google Maps and Apple Maps, because our solution is rich and story-filled. So I love that founding hypothesis. Now, here's what I want you to think about, because a lot of people that will listen to this are in mortgage or real estate or salespeople. You can do the same thing for your team, for your production as a loan officer, right? If I help blank solve blank with blank, they will choose me over my competition because, and this is my differentiator, right? Like this framework works perfectly for what we do. And for all of my vendor friends, same thing. And same thing with mortgage companies. You have to, what's your founding hypothesis, right? What are you solving, right? And then on the same page down here, you then have the scorecard on how your hypothesis is. And do you have the right customer, right? And then, so do you have the right customer? Are you solving the right problem? Do you have the right approach? Will they switch? And do you have the right differentiation? And does it click? And click means it's intuitive. Your customer gets done reviewing your hypothesis, goes, I want in. Let me have a piece of it, right? Or if they get done reviewing it, they're like, nah, that doesn't really work for me. And you know what the authors used in their book as an example of this? They used in the movie Big, when Tom Hanks gets hired by a toy company and the product executives rolling out their new product, that little transformer that turns into a building, and Tom Hanks' calendar is like, what? Huh? Who wants to play with a building? Like, no, right? And so that was an example of how if you do these test runs, that's a perfect example. You avoid making stupid mistakes like that. So I really like that. So that's this is the one last thing too. They do have, which I'm not going to talk about because it's pretty lengthy, but starting on page 34 here, they have the design sprint. So once you've done your foundation sprint, you know what you're going to do, you know what you want to make, you then get into a design sprint. And the design sprint is 2 days or 5 days, and they map it out. They map out the sprint right here. You can see the 5 days. But what's really neat is they break every single day down. So you could go in. The foundation sprint is 2 days. The design sprint is 5 days. Here's the foundation sprint minute by minute. If you wanted to do it, you could use this PDF and do it. It's as simple as that. So I'm going to give you, let me go back to full screen here. So there you go. Those are the key things I share with you, not only the chapters, but the team of rivals, the founding hypothesis, the scorecard, and the design sprint. I'm telling you, if every loan officer did this about their business or every real estate agent did it, they'd have such clarity. It would be awesome. And you can really, and by the way, you could then take that foundation to your customers, to your referral partners. Does it click with you, right? As a customer, does this click with you? To your manager, does this click with you? To your referral partner, does this click? Does this make sense? If the answer is no, go back to the drawing board, start over. But don't toil for years not getting business because you have the wrong approach, the wrong angle, no differentiation. So I love this idea. Super easy to use. Book's easy to listen to. This is really simple to use. So just a couple, here's some cool quotes from the book. Making something that clicks is not luck, it's a system. I love that. I love systems. Next one, your real competition is what your customer already knows and uses, right? That is a competition because you can make something better, but it has to be so much better to overcome the risk and the discomfort of having to use something. Big projects succeed when you start small and test early. And then differentiation isn't optional, it's survival. And so there's all sorts of, I've got the Audible book, which you saw before. They also have a PDF, a 54-page PDF, which I mentioned. And then they have a pretty robust website supporting the book, the clickbook.com. I can tell you if you order it, your book from there, you can also sign up for their bonus material, which is like their 6 things. They're pretty robust, worth doing. So I really like this book. I thought it was a really practical playbook for launching something new. I'm eager to use it in the endeavors I'm working on. I've already recommended this book almost to everybody I've talked to this week. I know some of you have recommended it strongly. Easily actionable, as you can see. There's a ton of great real-world examples that aren't from unattainable companies. It's simple, visual, quick to apply. I really liked it. I give this book 5 stars out of 5 stars personally. And I loved it. It was 3 hours. I got so much out of it for 3 hours. Sometimes I slog through a book for 11 hours. I'm worn out. I don't have time to go back and study the book. I don't even want to touch the book again. This book I got done again. I literally almost listened to it a second time. And instead I started immediately working on the PDFs and started, chicken scratching some of my own stuff on it so that I started to get it. I loved it, man. I hope you guys love it too. I appreciate you guys checking my book reviews out. I also appreciate you checking me out on socials. I hope you had a great week. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks so much.